Plato is making frequent appearances in this reading journey. I just finished the Republic. Let me tell you all about it. In my review of Book 17, Meno, I touched on Plato's background, an aristocratic philosopher living in Athens during the 4th century BC. He studied under Socrates and later taught Aristotle, thereby establishing a link in one of history's most impressive chains of thought. Socrates, of course, never wrote anything down himself. Everything we know about him comes from the writing of his students, and through Plato, we get a front row seat to Socrates' endless questioning about justice, virtue, and how we ought to live. The Republic is probably Plato's best-known work. It opens with a conversation about justice, what it is, whether it's better to be just or unjust, and then stretches outward into discussions about the soul, the ideal city, and who should rule it. Plato's answer, not the wealthy, not those born into privilege, but the most virtuous and wise. It's a refreshing thought. Imagine leadership as something earned by character rather than inherited by birth or purchased through money. At the same time, Plato acknowledges that even the best system can falter when children are poorly raised or influenced, a reminder that society is only as strong as the individuals who comprise it. This is also where we find the allegory of the cave. You've probably heard it before. People are chained in a cave, staring at shadows on the wall and mistaking those shadows for reality. When a person escapes and sees the sunlight, he realizes how limited his perspective was. Reading this, I couldn't help but think about how much of my own life has been shaped by shadows. Things I accepted because they seemed apparent at the time, but which later on turned out to be incomplete or even misleading. It also makes me wonder what caves I'm still sitting in now, without even realizing it. Plato also describes how governments decline, and this section felt especially relevant. He outlines a cycle: aristocracy, ruled by the best; timocracy, ruled by honor; oligarchy, ruled by the wealthy; democracy, ruled by the many; and finally tyranny, ruled by one. Reading this in light of today's headlines was unsettling. It made me pause and think about how fragile freedom really is and how much it depends on the individuals living with virtue. Without that virtue, no political system stands a chance. The Socratic method itself is fascinating, though I'll admit it's a tough one for me. I'm not quick with debate, and I usually need hours to think of the perfect comeback, which is long after the conversation is over. That's why I chuckled when I read Thrasymachus and Adeimantus grumbling in the dialogue about how frustrating Socrates' constant questioning could be. I felt seen. But for all the frustration, Socrates makes his point beautifully, that virtue and happiness go hand in hand, and that the best city is one ruled by the truly good and wise. It's an ideal we'll never fully realize, but even so, it feels worth striving for. I sometimes think American society at its best edges closer to it than most, though not without a struggle. Since Charlie Kirk's assassination, I've been reading works like this differently. The parallels struck me hard. Both Kirk and Socrates cared deeply about virtue and moderation. Both used questions to challenge assumptions, and both paid for it with their lives. That connection made me slow down in my reading and reminded me that ideas are powerful and sometimes dangerous. In the end, the Republic isn't just about politics. For me, it became a mirror reflecting the kind of person I'd like to be, someone who values truth, justice, and virtue, even when it's challenging. It also gave me a picture of the kind of community I'd like to live in, one shaped not by wealth or status, but by wisdom and character. Maybe it's impossible, but as far as ideals go, it's a noble one, and we need ideals to keep us moving forward. Reading the Republic reminded me that philosophy isn't just an abstract theory, it's a guide for living. Plato's question about justice, virtue, and leadership prompted me to step back and examine my own choices, my community, and even the assumptions I take for granted. I may never live in a perfectly just society, but I can choose to practice justice in my own life, to aim for virtue even when it's difficult, and to keep questioning the shadows on the wall. For me, that's the real gift of this book, a reminder that the pursuit of wisdom and justice is a lifelong endeavor, but always worth it.